Namaste and welcome to this live episode of Jaipur Dialogues. And today I have a very distinguished personality with me. This is Air Marshal Anil Chopra. Welcome, sir.
And Thank you.
Let me introduce you that he is having the distinction of being the only air marshal in the world to have ejected from a fighter aircraft. That was the Mirage 2000. He's commanded the entire Mirage 2000 fleet. He's been the air officer commanding in J&K and has held many distinguished assignments in his illustrious career. So welcome, sir. Today, what are we going to have from you? Because the people are very keen. Earlier, we have had some talks on the air power, but all of them were clamoring for a proper Air Force veteran to come and enlighten us on various aspects. That is why for the first time I've seen that even before the program has started, the questions have already started pouring in. So that is the kind of interest that we have. So viewers, I request you to keep giving the questions, but please, because we have a very distinguished persons from the Air Force here, please give some good questions. That is what my expectation is. So, sir, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay Dixit and Jaipur Dialogues. It's a great privilege, prestigious forum like this to have invited me to speak on the air power and especially the state of things that are happening on our border right now. It's important for the country and the viewers to know what's going on. So what I propose to do today is to cover first, talk about China, how it has been dealing with the outside world, how it's dealing with its own people, how is the Chinese aircraft industry that has come up, and how the air power they are going to use against us, and also later on cover a little bit of if in case there is a two-front war, what is going to happen. Next, please. Next. Okay, so if you see on this map that has been displayed in front of you, in the center is China, and all around it are the countries with which they have had some dispute or the other. So now one by one we are going to show you each country what they have had a dispute with. Next. Japan, they have a serious issue. We all know about the islands issue they have got with them. Next. And as far as the South China Sea is concerned, they have claimed nearly 3 million square kilometers of area and antagonized every country, especially Asian countries in that region. Next. See how small islands they have created of few rocks that were jetting out, and they made some airfields on those small islands in South China Sea. Next. These are the issues they have with South Korea and the Sokotora rock. Next. They have many disputes with Taiwan. Of course, they consider Taiwan as part of their country, and then there are many island issues with them. Next. But Taiwan now has a very strong pro-independence leader. She's won a landslide victory, and that's more trouble for China in one way. Next. China has issues with all the countries, North Korea, near that Mount Pakatu. We'll talk more about it if there's a question and answer. Next. Russia and China had a war in the 1960s, and Russia was forced to cede some territory to them, a small packet of land. Next. Mongols and Chinese have always been at war with each other, and that's why they had to build the Great Wall. And there are many issues between Mongolia and China on territory. Next. Tajikistan had to cede nearly 1158 square kilometers of territory to China some years back. Next. Chinese are having major inroads in Nepal. There are boundary disputes between them, but now they are trying to befriend them, and maybe they will take more concessions from them. Next. And see, with the tacit support of China, Nepal is claiming part of Indian territory on our borders. Next. We all know that we have had this Doklam 3 years back, and China claims part of Bhutan, part of it is marked on the map in front. Next. You see, the blue line is the Johnson line, which is what India calls is the border. There is another line called Mk II line, which is what China claims to be the border, and that is why they built their that highway, Tibet Xinjiang highway, slightly east of it. But the actual position where they are right now is the line of actual control, which is the line which is reddish in color. So you know that even from their claim line, they are much inside. Next. And we have built this Darbuk Shiok Dibyo road, and we have a lot of ALGs, air landing grounds in that area. We will talk about it a little later when we talk about the air action. Next. And I wanted to show everybody the Shaksam tract, which the Pakistanis have gifted to China illegally in 1960s. Next. This picture shows you the actual area of action, the Galwan incident, and how they have built a road which is coming to that point of conflict where it took place. Next. In the east, there is the issue of, they claim that McMahon line, which we call is the actual border, is not the correct line, and they claim most of Arunachal Pradesh. Next. And this is that area, tri-junction between Sikkim, Bhutan, and China, where we had the Doklam incident and also the Nathula-Chokala clashes of 1967. Next. So this is the red portions are the disputed areas between India and China. And I must tell you recently a very nice statement which I heard, which said that what is China says is what is ours. When we come to your area, wherever we sit, that becomes our. And if you want to thereafter negotiate, we can negotiate. And we can look for some more areas that could be ours. This is the approach they have had with all the disputes that they have had with all the countries till now. They pull out old maps and they try to, whatever suits them, and they bring in history to say that this portion was theirs. Next. Now I come to the second part, synthesization of Tibet and Xinjiang. Next. There's heavy People's Liberation Army presence in Tibet. Next. There's a flood of hands which have been being pushed into Tibet, but also in Xinjiang. Next. Tibetans have been ordered to replace Dalai Lama's portraits with Chinese party leaders. Next. China wants to choose the next Dalai Lama. Next. There is a central Tibetan administration which is running in India and in many other countries, but they have not been able to make much inroads, but they are making contact with the people in Tibet. Next. See the large infrastructure that China has built in Tibet, highways, railways, connecting the rest of China to Tibet and to Indian next to Indian borders. Next. You notice here that among all the provinces, the two provinces where there is a serious action against the Chinese is Xinjiang and Tibet. They are the largest two provinces in that country. Next. Now, Xinjiang is critical to us because Xi'an is now become more or less a part of this state. And this is the state which is bordering us. And this is where the action is taking place right now. Next. Now, this is the place, Xinjiang, the famous place, Kashgar and Khotan. These are the places which had the ancient Silk Route passing through. And therefore, subsequently, when I talked with the BRI, that the Belt and Road Initiative routes are also going to pass more or less through these old trade routes. Next. And in Xinjiang, they are doing ethnic cleansing. Uyghurs in China are literally having an uprising right now. Next. Anybody who opposes the communist regime, they are put for re-education camps. And now you see that China-Pakistan economic corridor, it also starts from Xinjiang and goes to Gwadar, and therefore, again, a critical area from security point of view for India. Next. Now, I want to highlight the link between Chinese Communist Party and the militaries. Xi Jinping has become more or less the absolute leader because head of the Politburo, he is the head of the Communist Military Commission, the China Military Commission, and he's the president. Next. You notice in this picture that parties on the top, army on one side, the state is one side. So the party and army are part of each other. In fact, the army is not of the state, but the army is of the party. Next. And this is the Central Military Commission where Xi Jinping is the boss, and the six key people, the vice chairman and the members, they're all generals or admirals or air marshals. Next. And ever since Xi Jinping has come, he has tried to dilute the People's Liberation Army and given greater importance to Navy and Air Force because he feels that his global ambitions can best be served by the Air Force and the Navy. Next. So here is a man fits like a glove of China, back to one-man rule, all-powerful after Mao Zedong. He's the next most powerful man. Next. And of course, you know, a lot of people are talking that the rate at which China is expanding is similar to what had happened when Hitler was trying to build Germany in 1930s. And therefore, the whole world is a little concerned. Next. So look at from our point of view, there is a string of pearls around India. If all the red dots is where the Chinese have some presence around India. So that means in Indian Ocean, the Chinese are trying to build up a great, I'm gradually building towards the security side, and soon I will come into what the air power is to be there. Next. And this is the Belt and Road corridors that are being built. Again, if you notice, they're all around India because India is not participating. But these corridors are leading to many relatively poor countries of the world. Next. And among the military presence, I thought I will highlight one or two of them, which I showed as the red dots in the a picture that I showed you a little while earlier about the string of pearls. This is the Djibouti military base that China has acquired. It's got both Army, Navy, and Air Force elements there. Next. And this is how the Gwadar port looks like. We all talk about it. This has been leased to China, and the Chinese naval presence in the Arabian Sea has increased considerably because of this. Next. But this Belt and Road Initiative, since I mentioned, it's going mostly to poor countries. Shown in red are the high-risk debt countries, includes Pakistan and some of these other East countries. Also in yellow are also fairly significant risk countries, and therefore all this is also going to have security implications for India. Next. The BRI, I think lots of people world over, especially in the Western media and also in Asian countries, are writing is going to be like a house of cards. It is going to sort of collapse one of these days. Many Southeast Asian countries have been asking for renegotiating the deals that China has entered with them. Next. So now we coming to the military aspects. Now, China defense budget 2020 is $178 billion. But people are saying, analysts are saying that the real figure is actually much higher because they have a lot of hidden amounts. That's close to $261 billion. US has got a $721 billion budget, but when it comes to the PPP, that is the payment parity capability, payment power parity, then US budget comes down to 455 billion. That means the gap between the Chinese and the US is gradually reducing. Notice that China has more than India, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, and Vietnamese budgets combined. They have got more budget than ours. Next. Mind you, Chinese have got still only 2 aircraft carriers. Only one is really operational. The other one is still doing sea trials. The USA has got 12. So the gap is still significant. Next. But massive military modernization, and I will talk more about it later, but notice 41% of the defense budget is going into capital purchases. In India, it is only 33%. Next. Now we come to the China's aviation industry. So I think now we are coming into the core area of my subject today. The Aviation Industry Corporation of China, which has been a consolidated industry, state-owned, is 163rd in the Fortune Global 500 list as of 2020. It has over 100 subsidiaries and employs 446,000 plus employees, has a revenue of 65.5 billion. And since HAL is our main aircraft industry in the country, I've put the comparative figures only $28,000 and $3 billion as of 2020. So a huge aviation industry in China. Next. And Chinese arms companies now have come, 4 of them are within the top 20 arms companies of the world. Now that's a big jump. They have moved up. And I also want to mention that this year's Fortune 500 list, there are more Chinese companies. Now that those are not all arms companies. There are more Chinese companies than the Americans. There are 214 Chinese companies and only 211 American companies in the top 500 companies of the world. So Chinese are coming up both financially and otherwise. Next. So quickly, I will show you where all their main factories are. Chengdu is their first factory, which has making the J-10, J-20, JF-17, top-end UAV. So big factory. This is one of the most important. Next one. Xi'an is the other big factory where they're building their bombers. All bombers are built there, including the H-20, of which the picture, which is under development, you can see in the picture. Next. Changhe is where all the helicopters are built, including the attack helicopter, the one which you can see right now in the picture. Next. This is their latest trainer, L-15, and built in Hongdu. All trainers are built in Hongdu Aviation Industry Group. Next. Harbin makes bombers. They also make some other transport aircraft. Next. Now, Shanghai is the place where they are building all the airliners. Now, the airliner you are seeing over there is already flying, and their target is that within next 2-3 years, they will have more than 1,000 airliners of their own flying in the various Chinese airlines. Next. And this is, I want to show this is an important bomber because this is sitting right now in Hotan, which is just next to our border in Ladakh. Next. This is the J-11 aircraft. Looks quite like the Su-27. We'll talk about it a little more later. Next. This is Y-30. It's an aircraft, a 30-ton payload aircraft under development. It will be something like our C-130 or a little, of that class, if I may say. Next. PL-15 is the missile that the media is all the time talking about. This is how it looks, and when later on I show you the meteor, I want you to remember this picture because you will find it looks quite like the meteor. And but the figures being said about PL-15 are outstandingly large. Next. This is the J-10C. This is one of their main fighters, which has been doing all the exercises in Tibet and Xinjiang, where the area of action. We could talk about this a little later. Next. This is the Y-20 aircraft. They already inducted in large numbers, built in China of their own efforts. And they're also going to soon have a tanker and AEWC variant of this aircraft. Next. This is a flying wing unmanned aerial system. Now, this is a real system. It is not a model, which you see in the picture. They are getting into development in large number of areas. Next. These are the electronic warfare variants. I just wanted to show to the viewers how their electronic warfare aircraft look like. Next. This is the ZDK-03 early warning aircraft, Chinese build, Chinese airframe. 4 of these are with Pakistan also. 4 or 5 of them are with Pakistan also. Next. So when we come to their aviation industry, broadly we've had a look. There are critical technologies China still does not have. Engines, aircraft engines, especially the high quality blades which are required to withstand high temperatures. They unfortunately can't even reverse engineer them. So this is one area where they also in avionics, there are serious doubts about their ISA radars and various other avionics equipments. Despite industrial espionage and stealing of designs that they have done over the years, they have a lot of distance to cover. The other point I want to make is that China has a cost advantage for their aircraft, and that's why they're trying to sell to poor countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, etc. But the Western world has now analyzed with the cost advantage just 14 to 20%, which is not very great. And considering the quality differential, this gap can easily be bridged. And J-20 still has significant deficiency. We'll talk about it a little later. And cost of that aircraft will also go up. So the cost differential between the rest of the world and Chinese will gradually reduce. Next. Okay, now, we all have been talking about the design copies that the Chinese have been doing. So I'm quickly going to run through a couple of slides without talking much to show you how they have copied the designs. Next. This is the old MiG-19, which has been copied and made into J-6, but they did it initially under license. Next. This is the MiG-21, which has been converted into the F-7B or J-7 and produced in very large numbers. A copy and modified thereafter of their own. Next. And then what they did is they made the J-8. Initially, if you see on the left, the J-8-1, which is like a MiG-21, and subsequently they took a Russian Su-15 and they combined the two and they made J-8-2, which is on the right. Next. Now see, this is the J-10, which you see on top. On the right side center is Israeli Lavi and F-16 on the left. So you can see the similarities. From F-16, the Lavi evolved, and from Lavi, the J-10 has evolved. Next. This is the Chinese J-11 and Su-27. I mean, they look absolutely alike. Next. This is the China's J-15, which is a copy of the Russian Su 33. This is the deck-based aircraft, but they still don't have a deck to put it. So they are just, managing with that. Next. See how they've copied the the UAVs from the Western world. They look so much alike. And this is the top view of J-17 and F-16. Of course, they have made changes. The intake, etc., is different. But you see how significant part of the wing and the tail plane are similar to the F-16. Next. And this is what the J-31 and F-35 look like. I think it's an absolute photocopy between the two. Next. This is how the American C-17 and China's Y-20 look. So much alike. Next. And this is the helicopter copy. You remember the Sikorsky UH-60 is the helicopter which went and got crashed in Abbottabad when they were going for Osama bin Laden, and thereafter the Chinese have been given part of the design features based on UH-60 is what you see the Z-20. Next. So now we come to J-20. Now coming into more action, and in J-20, is it overhyped or reality? Next. See the comparison of J-20 with the other aircraft, the F-22, the Pak FA, that is the T-50 or Su-57, whatever you call it. Size-wise, J-20 is a fairly large, length-wise, width-wise, it's okay, it's similar to others. Next. Okay, these are the stealth features. These are the standard stealth features. Obviously, this picture has been distributed by the Chinese themselves, and there is nothing new. But if I was a test pilot would look at it, some of the features, especially the canards, though the canards leading edge and the main wing leading edge is more or less parallel, but the kind of movements the canard makes, there is a big question mark about. Also, the engines are still a question mark. Which we'll talk a little later more. Next. I've shown in the red circle is a corner reflector. This they put for exercises because the stealth aircraft should be seen by the other participants, and that is I wanted the public to know what is this corner reflector. We can talk about it in questions. Next. This is the ISA radar. Unfortunately, not very many good pictures are available on open source, but I thought I'll just say what an ISA radar looks like. This is the Chinese ISA. Next, please. Next. Okay, now this is that electro-optical targeting system antenna, which is under the nose. This is peculiar because most of the Western aircraft have got these antennas on the top. You will see a little later on the Rafale. Next. This is their cockpit. This is very interesting. Lots of pictures are available on internet on this. The LCD screen is 24 by 9 inches, which is huge, which is in the center. Looks like a reasonably modern, cockpit. Next. Just to give you an idea of the air-to-air missiles, the PL-15 is long, large. PL-10 are shorter range missiles, and PL-8, PL-12 is in between range type of missiles. Next. So here I want to show is that all the weapons in case of J-20 are going to be integral. All these 4 are in the belly, and there are 2 on the sides, and they also go inside the belly from the sides. So all missiles are integral in this case, which is expected from any stealth aircraft. Next. So engine, as I said, they have not been able to develop, especially thrust vectoring engines. Presently, they have bought nearly 2,000 engines from the Russians and Ukrainians. But here they have tried the thrust vectoring on J-10B. In one of the air shows this picture has been seen, but there is a work still going on. Next. Next. Yeah. Now, this is the WS-15 engine, which the Chinese have shown at one of the air shows, and this is the engine under development, which will finally plan to go onto the J-20. Next. They reportedly have a naval variant, which the trials are still going on the ground-based deck that they have created. Next. So interestingly, the J-20 mock-up was made by the Americans nearly a decade back at US Marine Corps Airfield in North Carolina. They are also doing their own research about what J-20 is all about. Next. So this is a picture which covers all the fifth generation aircraft, this slide. And also I have put the figures of Rafale. The first one is J-20, the last one is Rafale. Basically, I want to highlight that both in length and wingspan and the gross weight, the J-20 is much larger. Gross weight of J-20 is nearly double. Even volume-wise, it will be double the size. But since he will carry only internal missiles, and Rafale will be able to carry much larger external load on 14 hardpoints of 9.5 tons. So it has its own pluses and minuses. Plus for Rafale is that it will carry a huge load, but the minus is that it is not stealth. But otherwise, on many other counts, they are equivalent. In some cases, Rafale is better. Next. Okay, so Rafale is 4.5 generation, partially stealth, literally half the gross weight and volume. J-20's stealth is in question. Russian engine maintenance and reliability, big question, because we have got a huge experience in Indian Air Force about Russian engines. Then electronic warfare, Rafale is clearly ahead. And Rafale has the advantage of 20 years of 5 major operations in Iraq, Afghanistan, Mali, Libya, and Syria. Next. So just one second. Just one. So you see on the screen the PLAAF Aircraft Holdings. We will not go into the details, but I want to tell you that at serial number 2, that is 450 J-7s, 96 J-8s, they are old aircraft, will gradually go away. So out of the 1730, you can say about 1,000 aircraft are now in decent shape. IF has got about 680, out of which again another 150 of them are little old, but rest are all new. So you get a broad idea. I don't flash Indian aircraft breakdown, but you can see the general idea. But Chinese Air Force PLAAF, a country is 2.5 times India's size, and their Air Force is of course much larger also. Next. Okay, now we look at the China's growing defense exports. Now this has serious implications for India. Next. See, JF-17, they made 140 plus. It is Pakistan, which has got more than 120. Finally, they'll have about 300 aircraft one day, because Pakistan is making it themselves along with the Chinese, 50-50 more or less. Nigeria, Myanmar has already got it. Sri Lanka is likely to get. So these are implications for us. And all will be built in Pakistan, half of them, half the part of the aircraft. Next. See, K-8 Karakoram jet trainer is flying, 92 of them flying in Pakistan, 350 in China, in Latin America. Then in Africa, 80% of African air forces have got this aircraft. Total build is close to 650. Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Bangladesh already flying. I mean, this is something, if we had our own IJT or whatever we are trying to make, imagine the numbers, nearly 700 of these are already flying. Next. This, the two UAVs, especially the Wing 2, even Pakistan is talking to China to be able to build this in Pakistan. It's important UAV, the specifications seem to be very good. Next. And this is the classic CH-4 Rainbow, which is already with Pakistan, which is already with large number of Middle East countries. So again, China's exports of military hardware, especially aeroplanes, big. Next. They have sold at least 20 military ships of 1,000 ton plus. 1,000 ton is not too big, but they are a reasonable size. And who have they sold these to? Bangladesh, Thailand, Pakistan, Egypt, Nigeria, Algeria. And they are supporting in some form or the other all the navies, whether it's Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, in Indian Ocean. So, issues for us. Next. Chinese submarines are already with Pakistan, Thailand, Bangladesh. Numbers are going to increase. Pakistan has ordered 8 more new ones. 4 of them will be built in Pakistan itself. Next. See, the Chinese military exports to Pakistan in about a decade's time, bulk of it, 43% is aircraft related. Next. But as I mentioned, China has to import engines. They are importing from Russia, Ukraine, bulk of the fighter engines. But they are also importing from France and many other countries, different engines for their helicopters, for their transport aircraft, all over. Okay, next. Now we come to Pakistan Air Force. They have on paper 700 aircraft, but in reality about maybe 400, maybe about 600 aircraft, 70,000 personnel. Next. So in Indo-Pakistan wars, they didn't participate. Pakistan Air Force didn't participate in 47, 48. They didn't participate in Kargil, but 65 and 71. They did they gave us a good fight. They're a good air force, but things were against them. The Pakistan Army has always treated them as nobodies, and the Pakistan Air Force could not do well in 65 or 71. Though in 65 they give us a good fight, but in 71 the stage had come that they had to take away their aeroplanes to Iran and park them under shelters so that we do not destroy their entire air force. Next. So the Pakistanis initially in the 50s went to Americans. They bought the F-104, then they later on bought the F-16, and after the 65 war, they bought the French Mirage 3s and 5s. And after the Pressler Amendment came on their nuclear, this thing, and the Americans put their foot down. They went whole hog to the Chinese, and I am telling you, in the next decade or so, it will be a Chinese Air Force. The entire Pakistani Air Force will be of Chinese origin. Next. So, Pakistan Aircraft Holdings, again, I will not go into the full details, though the fighters mentioned are 500, but you can take it, they are actually around 400 because in the first 3 serial numbers, the actual numbers are much less because these aircraft fleets are slowly decreasing in numbers, whether it's the J-7, which is the MiG-21 class, like our Bison, but poorer than our Bison, and the Mirage 3s and 5s are also going. But the JF-70 numbers will go from 120 to 300 one day slowly, and they are producing close to 25 aircraft a year, which is fantastic when we compare to our LCA. Next. So another good thing about Pakistan Air Force is that they are doing air exercises with the entire world. They do exercises with Turkey, where the Western Air Forces have been participating, including Israel. Then they do their inter-services standard exercise, which we also do. But they have done a lot of exercises with UAE and with the Americans. But the main thing is that they have done 8 rounds of exercises with the Chinese Air Force starting since 2011, and that is a thing of worry because it's improving their interoperability. They're having similar aircraft, and they're also getting to know more about the Su-30s, etc., from the Chinese. Next. So we come to the Rafale now. So Rafale is being inducted, it's being operationalized. Next. So this is the Meteor missile, 150 kilometers range, 60 kilometers of no escape zone, which is very critical. Once you are within 60 kilometers, boy, you can do any maneuver, you will not be able to get out. And you see how the PL-15 looks so much like the Meteor. So I presume that the two missiles are somewhat similar and not overhyped figures that the Chinese have been giving to the whole world. Next. So we had asked for some India-specific enhancement, which has been covered again and again in the television channels, but I have put them on the screen just to give an idea. So we have this helmet-mounted sight. We have got these engine must start at high altitude airfields like Leh, and we have upgraded the radar warning receivers, and we have taken some additional jammers, and the aircraft has to be seen through for maintenance for next 50 years. And there is a penalty link, assured fleet serviceability of 75%. Next. So everyone has seen the Rafale being brought on ferry, and the channels have covered it live. Next. And it is the 17th Squadron, which is the Golden Arrows in Ambala, which is, this is how their crest looks like. Next. And the Rafale Air Base is shown in blue is Ambala, and you see it is 200 kilometers to the western and the eastern border, and the main air bases Gargunza and Sargodha are more or less equidistant from Ambala. And on the right side you can see Hashimara, which is boxed in orange, which is in that narrow corridor between Bhutan and Bangladesh, strategically important from the eastern side point of view. Next. So we all have heard that it is the omni-role fighter. An omni-role fighter means it can do many roles in a single mission. It could be doing air defense as well as strike in the same mission. So that's how it is called the omni-role. Next. So it has two Snecma M88 engines, very, very high reliability, and the figures are known for the French Air Force because they have been using it operationally in war. Next. So this is how the ISA radar looks like. Electronically scanned beams, the radar doesn't move, only the beams move. And it also has that Spectra electronic warfare suit and missile warning system. And the IRST, you can see a little blob on top of the radar on the left of the screen, which is the dome for the IRST. Next. So this is how the 14 hard points are, and though the picture is not very clear, but you can make out what can be carried on each of these 14 hard points, how the 14 hard points have been laid out on the aircraft. 9.5 tons of load, it will be able to carry so many missiles, bombs, and various combinations of the two. Next. So this is the SCALP missile, cruise missile, 540 kilometers range, and you can see it has to have a huge size because it has to cover a lot of distance. Next. So operational training, bulk of it has been done in France. Remaining is already started in Ambala. They have to train with the radar controllers, they will train with the other fleets with whom they will carry out operations. And that exercise is physically on, and it's a matter of time when they will be, or they must already be fully operational by now. Next. So I will quickly sum up why it is the game changer. It's radar, ISA, no radar of this class in the subcontinent. The missile Meteor is again comparable to the PL-15, if not better. The electronic warfare suit, Mirage, Rafale, any day better. Stealth, it may just about be matching the J-20, but maybe J-20 is slightly better. And then, but the smaller size of the Rafale will make good for the stealth, and the engine reliability. I have already spoken how this aircraft is going to be a clear game changer. Next. So let us quickly now start wrapping up to say that IF in Ladakh all set for extended stay and winter operations. Next. Yeah, so just to revise, we seen this picture sometime earlier today, but to show you where the area of action is, the three places where the red arrows, where the Chinese have made some encroachments, somewhere small distance, somewhere a little larger, which we all have watched on the television channels. Next. So the political free hand, the Prime Minister has gone to Ladakh and announced that, okay, and he made a reference to the Sudarshan Chakra, and we hope the armed forces will deliver when the time comes. Next. So let us look at some of the air campaign. I will run through an overview very quickly. Next. So initial operations will be of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, which will be done by satellites, by aircraft of the Jaguar and Su-30 class, by NTRO, by various other agencies. Next. So we will be already satellite pictures are coming in public domain, and of course, I'm sure the military establishment will have many more satellites. We have our own military satellites in space, and we would be getting up-to-date pictures. Next. Also, the DRDO's NETRA and our AVACs will be monitoring the air activities on the other side, also taking the intelligence electronic signals of the aircraft and weapon systems from the other side. Next. And then we come to the main fight operations. Counter air. Counter air means that we must destroy their air. That means we must destroy their airfields. That means we must destroy their aircraft. And air defense is the reverse. That means we must save our own aircraft and airfields and our vital installations in our country. And so there are these operations which will be done by fighter aircraft, Su-30s. I have shown the picture of Indian Navy's MiG-29K because they have been brought in, because all air assets of the country must be pulled in if push comes to shove, and that's the kind of exercise that's going on. Next. So the AEW and C, that is the AVACs, will be in action. Next. Next. Okay. So the key PLAAF airfields in the area of action is Hotan, which is the north of Leh, and Gargunza, which is to the east. Of course, airfields elsewhere, which I will show you a little later, can also be used. But these are the two key airfields, and significant assets are already sitting in Hotan. Next. So this is how Gargunza looks like. It's a civil airport basically, but the military uses it also. Next. And this is a picture of 14th June of this year in Hotan, and you can see that there are all kinds of fighters which are already positioned. It's a military airfield, large airfield, and even J-20's pictures have come in. That J-20 is also positioned in Hotan now. Next. So there will be fighter operations which will be in interdiction. That means we must knock off their battalion headquarters, their brigade headquarters. We'll knock off their tank concentrations. We must knock off their bridges and important logistic choke points. And in close air support, that is CAS, close air support, we must support the Indian Army by knocking off their tanks and various other weapons and their forward locations. Next. So the attack helicopters, the Apaches are there, and they can take on individual tanks, or they can even take on some other targets of the Chinese army primarily. Next. And the BrahMos missiles, there are media reports that BrahMos is already in the region. BrahMos has already initially was cleared up to about 260 kilometers, thereafter increased to 500. Later on, it will go even longer range. So this is an important weapon for long range interaction and taking on important targets. Next. And this is the Hammer missile, which media said that Indian Air Force is trying to buy. This will be for interdiction at a shorter range, about 50 to 60 kilometers. This will be an important weapon if and when we buy. This is on the Rafale. Next. So this is the kind of target. A whole heap of bridges and on the highway that is connecting Tibet and Xinjiang. And there are many other smaller roads which are coming towards our border. There will be bridges that will have to be targets for interdiction. Next. And there will be special operations, paratroopers, C-130. We've already done when the defense minister went to Ladakh, one exercise was done where paradrop was demonstrated to him in a place, open ground, not too far from Leh, that is at a place called Snecma. Next. And then, of course, air maintenance. Whole year the Indian Air Force is trying to maintain the Indian Army in that region, but now the requirement will increase. So the C-17, which can also carry a T-90 tank, and the IL-76, which can carry the T-72 tank, they will have to do much more flying if the things the way they are going will carry on into the winters, and air maintenance will have to be done. Next. And see the C-130, it has also landed at airfield, which is just 10-15 kilometers away from the China LAC. Next. And air mobility also means that the army guns, etc., will be shifted from one place to the other by the Chinook helicopters. So this action is already on right now in Ladakh. Next. And then, of course, the air refuelers, they are required for any operations, whether it's Ladakh or elsewhere, and these will be in action. Next. And for the air defense, there are a large number of weapons, and we heard that Akash missile systems are already in Ladakh. That's what the media reports are saying. So many other systems would have been put in place. Next. Now unlike Chinese, we have actually fought a war in the mountains. We did this Kargil war, and we learned some lessons. We lost 2-3 aircraft because of shoulder-fired missiles. We also had problems firing weapons from very high altitude. So I think those lessons have been learned by Indian Air Force very well, and therefore those will be put into place in Ladakh, I presume, because we have had a dummy run of the kind of operations that are likely to happen already in Kargil. Next. So in case of a two-front war, we are down to only around 30 fighter squadrons. The Pakistanis have around 19 or 20 squadrons. The Chinese have much larger numbers, 70, 80 squadrons. So we have to do the best. When the war starts, whatever you have to fight with it, even if it means to throw stones. But that India is ready, and Indian Air Force has a plan B, which has already been practiced. Next. So the main issue is that the Chinese and Pakistanis have, they train a lot. They have done 8 rounds of exercises, and they also have interoperability of their equipments. So we have to factor that in for any future operations. Next. So these are the actual airfields across most of China, Tibet, and further. You see these orange circles. They are the ones which are the Chinese airfields, and you see these yellow, much larger numbers, and in planes where the Chinese are at high altitude, ours is at much low planes. But mind you, Hotan is at about 4,500 feet, which is not too high an airfield. So that is why they will be using Hotan quite considerably. Next. And similarly, I have just marked in orange the Pakistani airfields which are in the northern sector, and I have put the comparative airfields of ours. We have much larger number of airfields, and Pakistan has got only 13 flying stations, if I may tell you. Yeah. Next. And we have got nearly 3 squadrons of Su-30s already in Assam. More can be built up. The advanced landing grounds in Assam have been modernized, and the eastern sector has been strengthened by India in many ways. So I think we are ready. We are ready to take anybody on. Next. So the issue about Atmanirbharta, I think it's very close to me. I'm a test pilot. I've been working very closely with DRDO and HAL, and I thought I must make a few mentions. Next. LCA, the numbers are too few. Still, we want the production to go up, whether it's the government which has to place an order for the LCA Mark 1A or the delays at some other level, I do not know. But the production of 8 to 10 or 12 aircraft is not good enough. The Pakistanis are making nearly 25 JF-17s. Our numbers have to go up because we also want to feed these squadrons. We bought only 36 aircraft. We need LCAs very desperately in the Indian Air Force. Next. And the LCA Mark II design work is on, but I think we need to accelerate this. This is how the Mark II will look like as of now, what we are being told. And we need to accelerate this process. Next. There are more advanced variants of the LCA which have already been brought in public domain by the HAL, called the Omni-Role Combat Aircraft, the ORCA, a little bigger than the LCA, much more weapon stations you can make out from here, very much good looking also. But we need these to come up very, very quickly, even if it means pumping money and supporting the industry. Next. And AMCA, we are at least 18 to 20 years behind the Chinese on the stealth aircraft. And I think the whole country has to put the energies and money into AMCA to quickly get this stealth fifth generation fighter going. We need to cover distance. Next. Next. Okay, we have only two DRDO Netras presently. I think India should go for 8 to 10 of them. Even our IL-76 based AVACs, we have been wanting to buy and get more, but that whole process has been delayed for some reason or the others. So there is a need to push for more AVACs. Next. The Chinese, as I showed you, are building such a large number of UAVs. They are called the Walmart of UAVs in the world now. And we have already had the first flight of Rustam 2, but I'm waiting for the day that more UAVs, Indian built, will be getting into the Indian armed forces in large numbers, which is where the future is unmanned. The whole world is going to fight an unmanned war in the future. Next. And I think the ALH has done well. I'm very proud that the rotary wing part of the HAL has been good. But after stabilizing with the ALH now, whether it's the Rudra weaponization, whether it's the light utility helicopter, whether it's the light combat helicopters, we have to start pushing in larger numbers into the Indian Armed Forces. Next. And the private sector has got a great potential. We know that Tata's they're working with the Boeing, they are working with the Lockheed Martin, they are working with large number of others. The Bharat Forge made the gun. The large number of companies have tremendous potential. Time to take them in, hand over lots and lots of jobs to them, and they know how to manage projects, which unfortunately in public sector undertaking is normally a weak area. Next. Defense budget in Atmanirbharta, I'm afraid as a military man, I must tell you, very small, very small. You see the ordnance factories and DRDO budget, and even the Air Force, Army, Navy, the total amounts are so little, the capital budgets are so less. Modernization, we are at least 15 years behind in our modernization targets. So a lot more needs to be done. More money has perhaps to come in from where, I do not know, but some solutions have to be found. Next. So I come to my last few slides of my talk, the Quad. Next. The Chinese are taking over the South China Sea, and that means the bulk of the Pacific Ocean. Next. And they are having military all over. You see the stars, they are having military presence all over in the in Indian Ocean now, in the areas around us. Next. And they have tightened full control over their own people. There is no democracy, and so I do not know what kind of a country they want to become a superpower with. Next. See the democracy index of the world, and the scene in the all these reds and pink are having practically no democracy. Luckily, we are in a democratic country, and all around us, unfortunately, democracy is in a very, very poor state. Next. And so the Quad, of course, officially they are not saying they are targeting China, and also Quad is not supposed to be a military alliance. But you see the colors in blue; these are the Quad countries, but in the middle is China, and that's how things are evolving. Next. So we have carried out exercises. Now Guam, I must tell the viewers, is the place from where the atomic bomb took off in the 1945 and when it hit Japan. So this is the area you can get an idea of locations north of Philippines, not too far from China. This is where we have been having trilateral exercises. Australians are also likely to join the Malabar exercises in the near future. Next. So Indo-US defense linkages in the last a decade or so, we have bought a large number of systems from them, whether it's the P-8I, whether it's the C-17, C-130, the Chinook, the Apache. They all have been bought with mostly the aerial platforms have been bought from the Americans, and also some guns have been brought from there. And we also have signed these three very important agreements. The LEMOA, the COMCASA, and BECA, which makes interoperability between the armed forces that much easier. So we are sort of getting closer defense-wise with the Americans. Next. So the US has got a large number of military-based presence, but if you see all these soldiers, which are little soldiers, these are all the American bases. They also have presence in Pakistan, but of course, if you see the color of Pakistan, it is also having the purple color, which is same as China. That means it's playing both the sides. And this is the general American presence in this area. Next. So the Quad's aim is to extinguish the fire that the Xi Jinping has lit and is trying to threaten the whole world. Next. The ASEAN countries are divided. 53% believe that they would like to be with the USA, but there are another 46% people who think that China is a safer bet for them. And if you see that among these countries, the ASEAN countries, more than half of them feel that Quad will ultimately contribute to stability and peace to Indo-Pacific region. Next. So now I conclude. I have exactly 1 hour 2 minutes completed, so I think we are well in time. First statement: who controls the aerospace controls the planet. Be sure. The Americans became clear in the 1990s, and the Chinese have become very clear, and therefore the importance to aerospace. PLAAF has very, very poor combat experience and very poor exposure. They haven't fought a war. Last they fought with the Vietnamese, a short conflict, and their international training exposure, other than Pakistan, they have not been training with anybody. So in a short conflict, now what should we be? The initial success is very important, both for momentum and morale. This is my personal feeling. So important to put whatever you have in one go because the conflict will not be too long. I think Make in India importance is being given, but a lot more needs to be done. It can't be just a lip service. Physically, we have to push forward in Make in India. Artificial intelligence and hypersonic weapons, the Americans, the Russians, and the Chinese are moving very ahead. We need to improve there. And for peace and prosperity, we have to find some boundary solution. I think for the time being, Quad is a grouping that is important for us. And lastly, it is time to get our act right, India. We need to start pushing in the defense production. The next slide. Okay, I must finish my talk with these two quotes, one from Bhagavad Gita and one from Sun Tzu, The Art of War. So the Bhagavad Gita tells us to be fearless, to be pure, never waver in your determination, be self-controlled, sincere, truthful, full of the desire to serve, cultivate vigor, patience, will, purity, fulfill your duty as a warrior. Then Arjuna, you will achieve your divine destiny. And on the other side, the Sun Tzu also says, If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of the 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer some defeat. And if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. So it's very important for us to know our enemy. With this, I have finished my uh, very, very quick presentation, covered a large battleground, if I may use that word. And now I am with you. Back to Sanjay for the further actions.
That was great information. So much of information packed in just about 1 hour. So that was a wonderful presentation by you, Marshal Chopra. So what we'll do is that I will ask you 2 short questions with quick answers, and then we'll go straight into question answers with the viewers, because there are a large number of questions there. So there is this general impression that Chinese claims and the Chinese actual performance, there is a very wide gulf. So whatever they claim for J-20 or others, that's not been tested. You yourself said that they are not a combat tested outfit.
Yeah,
How do you look at that?
as I mentioned earlier, the Chinese, again, I'm going back to Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu said, win the war without fighting. That means the Chinese believe that scare the opponent by facts and figures, that he will be too scared. He'll think you are too big. Even if they're a mouse, they will say, I'm an elephant. Now, this is the Chinese approach. They have a huge organization. So, also Pakistan's ISI has, is China, the entire media is controlled, and therefore the Chinese are all the time to pumping information to scare the world. They're already talking about 6 aircraft carriers. Their second carrier is not becoming operational yet. So they are all the time pumping information through. The bulk of the information is coming through Global Times and CGTN and some of these agencies. But there is a huge military IWI, information warfare and influence operation going on behind, which is trying to pump in this information. But most analysts feel that till you physically see something which we have not seen, it's all propaganda. All we get to see is at the Zhuhai Air Show every 2 years, whatever equipment they show. But physically, whether the PL-15 will go to 300 kilometers, which they are claiming, but we all know from the looks of it and design, it should not be anything more than a meteor. But the other side, I must tell you, is that Americans, they're all the time also painting the Chinese growth so that they can get the funds from for defense development from their Congress, that China is becoming so big, let's do something about it. So I think it's a two-way exercise. Undoubtedly, the Chinese overhyped, and but I must also say that never take your opponent lightly. So we have to bring in a balance. Don't think that they're a tiger, but they don't think they're a snail either.
Okay, right. The second part is that in the this Ladakh Xinjiang Tibet theater, I've had discussions with the other defense experts. Of course, they were not from the Air Force. And the consensus is that because of the limitations of airfields and because of the limitations of elevations, the Chinese will not be able to pump in more than 100 equivalent of aircrafts in this entire theater. And that too will be of the vintage type, the J7, J10 types, which are the major workhorses of the PLA Air Force. And whereas India has much more modern aircrafts and operating from low elevation airfields, and the whole area is dotted with so many airfields that India will be able to put in almost double the number of aircrafts So even in the number, both in number of quality and quantity, India holds all the aces in
Absolutely,
this theater.
Sanjay, as you mentioned, the airfield-wise, we are clearly much better, undoubtedly. You're right that the bulk of the aircraft will be of the J-10 class. J-10. I won't look at J-7 now because they won't be fielding J-7 much. It'll be mostly J-10s, which they have got about 450 of them, as I showed you on that slide. So they've got significant numbers. They'll also have these Su-30 class equivalents, their equivalents, the J-11, J-16, etc. But they will use the H-6 bombers. You know, these bombers are presently at Kashgar, but also some have been positioned at Kota. Now, these bombers, their range is not an issue for them. They are huge aircraft, but they carry huge number of cruise missiles. Now, I will tell you the Chinese strategy is, which we have known for some years, is they will use a lot of surface-to-surface missiles, and they will also use a lot of cruise missiles because they have in larger numbers. You know, so that is something we will have to defend. Undoubtedly, purely aircraft-wise, we are better. Airfields-wise, in the region, what we can pump it, we are better. But I think to defend against a missile is not easy. That is how Chinese, that their whole strategy, their documents say, is based on this, because they will use more of missiles because they are difficult. But missile is finite. It will finish. It will go either hit, not hit. If it doesn't hit, it's wasted. So there are those pluses and minuses that we have to balance. And I agree that they can't field from these 2-3 airfields in that area more than 100. 100 is the upper side. Yeah.
Okay, right. Now we go to the questions. Questions will be flashed across the screens, and I will also read them out.
Yeah.
Deepak Guru, did we shoot F-16 or JF-17 of PAF?
Yeah, you know, this is a never-ending debate. Pakistan Air Force has already set up a museum in which they have put one Su-30 tailplane, and they have put one MiG-21 Bison. All kinds of claims are being done. Now, as far as Su-30 getting shot up, well, that is too much. I mean, in India, we are a democracy. We can't hide. If an aircraft would have dropped Su-30 within India, they would have been, hundreds of people. Our media is so active, they would have reached there first. So that is out. Now, question is, yes, Abhinandan got shot. It's there because if the aircraft got shot, it fell in their territory. He ejected, and so there is no discussion on that. Now, whether we shot F-16 or JF-17, very few people have ever said that we ever shot a JF-17. Bulk of the people, including Indian Air Force, the official position of Indian Air Force, the air chiefs, the previous and the present, they all stood by and have tried to give the proof that it was the F-16 which has shot. We now, retired people, have to go by what the Air Force and the government of the day is telling us, because they have much more information that you and I don't have. Yeah.
Okay. Next question, please. Rajendra Singh Butola, how can we decouple from Russia for military hardware?
You know, I will tell you, I had earlier made a slide because to cover this aspect. You know, this decoupling is not easy. Let me explain. You know, 2 years back, then PAF commander, now the US Air Force chief had come to India, and there was a small group discussion where there were 5-6 of us, and I happened to be one of them. You know what he asked me? He said, how can we wean away Russia from China? Look at the thought in his mind. See, this is important. That Russia, I have lived 4.5 years in Russia as the leader of the MiG-21 update project, and I came to know the Russians very closely at different levels. Now, what Russians, if you see the Russian emblem, it has got 2 eagles, one facing one side and one eagle facing the opposite side. Now, these 2 eagles, when we asked them, what kind of emblem is this? They said, we are so unsure, are we a European nation or an Asian nation? The bulk of their land is in Asia, but They have always, their top city, Moscow, the old time Kiev, this St. Petersburg, everything is in Europe. So actually, the Russians always want to treat themselves, because bulk of their population is also this side, to be treated as a European nation. Now, when when the Soviet Union broke down, and then the Russians wanted to come closer to the West, at some point the Americans chose. At one stage, Americans became friends with China against the Soviet Union in the 70s, and now the Chinese were becoming big. The Americans would have kept the Russians. Russians wanted to join NATO. Can you imagine? So, if that was the case, I think so. America made one mistake. Now, second, for traditional reasons, I mean, Russia had helped us a lot. Let's face it. In Bangladesh war, they had given a veto that anybody does anything to India, we will interfere. Means so Russia has been a great friend, and Russia is one country. If you know the people, once they make a friend, they make a real dear friend. They take long to make friends. But now they are also getting a mixed signal. So I think by ignoring CATSA, we went for S400 system. Now, is the S400 is the best or not? But even the Western writers are saying that S400 is one of the top systems of the world. Air system. So some amount of coupling with the Russia will remain. We are committed. The Su-30 fleet will be there with us for next 25, 30 years, if not more. So that, which is 50% of Indian Air Force today is Russian. I am talking only Su-30 and many other aircraft, MiG-29. We are buying more MiG-29, MiG-2. So it is not going to be easy to decouple, and I think we should balance the Russians and the Americans. Americans will try and push in a new fighter aircraft this time because they have got into transport, they have got into helicopters, they have got into maritime aircraft, they have got into many other, they have got into army guns. So they will try to, we will have to do some kind of a balancing because Russia needs us. Chinese will stop buying from Russia very soon. The only big market for Russia is India. So Russia also cannot leave India. So I think we should take advantage of this. Chinese are already copied the S-300. They are going to copy the S-400. And next, they will never buy an air defense missile or an aircraft from Russia. The last they have bought is Su-35s, only 24 of them. And they will now reverse copy and make aircraft of their own. And once they have their own J-20, and if it works for them, why will they buy Su-35s or anything else? So we have to see this. I have written some articles on this subject, covering these four countries: China, India, Russia, and America. So it's a very complex thing, but we cannot decouple in a hurry. Yes.
Okay, next question. Programming buddy, that's a pseudonym, I guess. Why we keep on buying Russian jets when Western jets are much superior? In BVR combat, no Russian jet comes closer to Meteor and Western jets. I think you partially answered this question already.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, that at one stage, the American aeroplanes were not available. Even today, if you ask the Americans, they will not offer F-35 to India, despite these three agreements already signed. So they are saying that the ecosystem in India has to first be, they have to be very sure that we will not give away important information to the Russians or to any other country that once the F-35 or some important aircraft like that was to come into India. So American fighters, they are right now willing to offer only the F-16 and equivalent class of fighters. They will try to get into Indian ecosystem by supporting our defense production, etc. And if we wait for another 5 years, maybe they will offer us the F-35 or something like that. In case our AMCA program, which is bound to get delayed. We know the past history. We've seen how much time these projects take. So that is the kind of situation. Much that many people would like to go the Western way, like they have gone Rafale. I personally feel that if Rafale is really good for us, why not buy another 36 of them or whatever to make good? But at this time, if you are getting cheap MiG-29s and Su-30s elsewhere, and we need the Su-30s to fill up the WWR, the war wastage reserve, the aeroplanes we have already lost. So we are just replacing aircraft which have crashed in the last 2 decades, about 12 of them. And MiG-29s, because they are available cheap and they've got many hours, flying hours still on their airframe, and therefore it's a cheap option to build up numbers of these squadrons. Okay.
Okay, next question. Abhimanyu. Question to both of you. RSN Singh said in one of the interviews that Syed Ahmed Barelvi and Balakot airstrike had a deep connection. Can you please tell us this connection?
No,
Because,
Balakot and
Syed Ahmed Barelvi,
uh,
the Shaheed, the one who was killed by Maharaja Ranjit Singh's forces in 1831.
I know Colonel R.S.N. Singh. We have spoken at some forums together. But no, I think only best person to answer such a question is only him. Balakot was a reaction to Pulwama, and there is no doubt about it, because immediately next day the Prime Minister had made a statement that we'll avenge it. The very next day, the service chiefs and the NSA, etc., had been told to go ahead and plan and we'll do that. And finally, it was decided the Air Force will do it for whatever reasons, rightly so, because you have to go deeper, since the target will have to be a terrorist camp, etc., etc. And that is how you chose. And any other linkages, I as a military man, I'm not aware of, other than the linkage that we have to avenge. And gave a signal that we are after your terrorists, we will go for it anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I'll supplement it. I mean, the linkage was found out later on by the media. And Syed Ahmad Barelvi, Shaheed, he has a significance because he had declared India to be what is called Darul Harb. And then he was killed by Maharaja Ranjit Singh's forces. So that kind of a metaphorical connection was made by the media. Next question we'll take. This is our own Clint Eastwood. How to start up business with helping our Air Force. How to, what he means is how to start a startup business to help the Air Force.
Yeah, I will tell you that the armed forces have a cell in the CII, CI, FICI, they all have defense cells with the defense industry is involved, and startups are in. Now, we are having a large number of exhibitions beyond just the Defense Expo and the Aero India. We are having lots of seminars, many places. I also give a talk where the industry is bringing small UAVs, small handheld cameras, handheld sensors, small parts of the aircraft. They are bringing to many seminars where the serving military people, the Ministry of Defense representatives, the retired people, all of them are getting to meet. The CIA is interfacing. But I will tell you that personally, I have attended for last 18-20 years a lot of these. And as again said, as a test pilot and having been the commandant of AST, I work very closely with these private industry, DRDO and HAL. Somewhere as a nation, we are going wrong. We haven't got our act right. There is nobody wielding the danda. Now, who can wield this danda? MOD has got the Air Force under it. MOD has got the Defense PSU under it. The present Defense Secretary was Defense Secretary Production. He is very, very knowledgeable about what is available with the industry, whether HAL should be pushed to get more and more small industries to deliver goods. Should DRDO be asked to hand over the technologies to some of these startups? Should we handhold some of these startups? Has to be done by the government, the Ministry of Defense. The Indian Air Force is saying, we want weapons, we want to train, we will fight the war. It is, we are supporting, we want to support indigenization, we want to support HAL, we want to support, but ultimately, Indian Air Force told in 2015, we want LCA Mk II A83 of them. Why till today the contract has not been placed on HAL? I do not know. The MOD stage has been cleared, whether we don't have the money, whether there are some other things that you and I don't know about. But surely we need to handhold startups, we need to support indigenization, because there is no other way. No foreign country will let you indigenize.
Right. Dr. Deepak Guru is asking this question. So kindly assure us that we'll be able to carry out takeoffs and landings if our runways get damaged in war scenario.
Yeah, I will tell you, this is ever since aviation started in First World War onwards, they have been talking about finding solutions to this because there will be bombing, and in Second World War the bombing was carpet, means there was nothing left on an airfield. That kind of bombing was taking place, but every country, every air force finds solutions. So right from the day I joined the Air Force 48 years back to the day I left, this is an issue the Air Force handles. There are we have within the runway, we have very quick repair schemes if the bomb was to drop on the center of the runway. We also have aeroplanes which are taking off in much shorter distances. So even if there are one or two bombs dropped at some, even if they are dropped on one half of the runway, you will use the other half of the runway. If you can't have the runway at all, you will use the taxiway to take off and land. So there are various methods to have alternates, and if everything fails, and now we have already tested out in 3 highways where we will be able to land, use them in operations, and our plan is 20 more such landing grounds in India. They are all work is in progress. So every highway that's come, in UP 2-3 very big highways are coming, and all these highways are going to have not one but more than one place where you will be able to take off and land, and so that kind of exercise is on. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Next question. Deepak Guru, Dr. Deepak Guru, sir. Abhijit has educated us a lot, but raised serious doubts on Su-30 and even called LCA stillborn child. Please comment.
Yeah, Abhijit, I know him personally, a good person, and makes some strong statements. Yeah, Su-30, I asked, why did China go in for, the half their Air Force is a Su-30 class, all derived from Su-27 or Su-30. Why did they buy Su-30 MKK? Why they have bought Su-35, which is a more modern version of this basic platform? So, there must be something good in that platform. Now, I was in Russia when Su-30 MKI project was going on. I was the leader of one team, another team, which we used to meet very often. The Sukhoi Design Bureau was there, and ours was the MiG Design Bureau. So, what I'm getting at is, Su-30 is a very potent aircraft. Already all the missiles are over. The new missiles will come. We one day may have a Meteor on Su-30. We will. Some more Russians are likely to give us the Novator 100, which has got a very long range, more than 200 kilometers air-to-air range. So there are Su-30 is a great aeroplane. I have done about 15 sorties in the Su-30. So it's a good aircraft. We are upgrading the Su-30. It will have a new radar. It will be an ISAR radar. It will be much longer range. It's a bigger aircraft. It can have a more powerful radar than the other aircraft because the greater real estate you have on board an aircraft, you can have a better radar. So if you have a better radar and good missiles, that's all that is required. So this kind of an upgrade is planned, and I think we should not underplay Su-30. That is my personal opinion, and I have.
Okay.
Second,
Okay.
I will talk about the LCA. Yes, Abhijit is right in a way that we have taken rather long. We started, the LCA did its first flight in 2001, and we have got about 22, 23 LCAs in the squadrons. The JF-17, the first design variant, the Chinese did use in 2003, but actually the projects took off in 2007. And see, they have already 140, 150 aircraft flying, and the production rate is much more. Of course, Chinese could pump in much more money. Chinese DRDO's the research and development budget is $25 billion. Our whole defense budget, take out the pensions, is around $45 billion. So that means more than half of our total defense budget is in the R&D. So when we compare these two programs, but I agree with Abhijit that LCA is moving too slowly. And this is great potential, great platform, good design. It has, it's going to replace, a MiG-21 in quantum leap ahead. But we have to produce much more number of aircraft, And we have to, whatever little things are left now, 1A, LCA 2, pump everything in. Ports, danda, MOD has to wield the danda. And otherwise, I will agree with Abhijit that we need to be very slow. Yeah.
Shailesh Latkar, is the LCA up to the task to compete with J-17 and J-20? What is the role being assigned to the 36 Rafale aircraft being inducted into the IAF?
No, firstly, I must tell you that LCA is not meant to be competing with the J-20. I mean, you can't ask Maruti 800 to, compete with some top-end model of some other, car. So, no, it is not meant. Every aircraft has a class and equivalent. Yes, LCA will be better than JF-17, I can tell you. Only thing is we are slow in production. LCA is a outstanding. It's an aircraft of the future. JF-17 is basically cut and paste, as I showed you, of the old MiG-21 and some other technologies that they got in J-10. Whatever they learned in J-10, they brought into J-17. So purely on numbers, we are slow, but LCA is to be compared only with JF-17, and we are better off, and we will be better than all the other inventories. We will be very close to the basic F-16 that the Pakistanis have got, that A and B model. So, but J-20, you should not be comparing J-20. You compare Rafale. I have just shown you the comparison. Rafale, though Rafale is a 20-year older aeroplane and an older generation, only 4.5 generation. But that's not fair to compare LCA with, the Rafale, with the J-20.
Okay, next one. Same Shailesh again. Is the US flying B-2 aircraft on our borders? What are the implications? Will they help us when China declares war on us?
As a responsible nation, the fourth largest air force and army of the world, we should not be banking that if we go to war, China, that Americans should, pump in, that go to war also, so that we gradually have more and more countries joining in, then Pakistan join. No, that's not the way, responsible nations do. But yes, whatever happens, there are these tacit pressures that are applied by different countries at different times, at different places. There is the pressure on the Chinese is phenomenal at this moment, whether it's from the Japanese, that side, the Quad, as I mentioned. They're all kinds of. And Japanese, the Chinese have moved in, in one place about 1 kilometer, another place 7-8 kilometers. There's an issue being resolved. There's a lot of diplomatic talking taking place. Of course, India and America are also talking at diplomatic levels, and pressures are being applied from different sides. But we should not talk about India asking America to come and join the fight because that kind of a scenario is not likely.
All right, next question. Ravindra Singh, disadvantages of staying non-aligned.
Yeah, this is not a pure Air Force related, air power related question, but, we all understand that there are advantages. There is a time when the world evolves. If you see last 100 years history, nearly 60 new nations have been created in just 100 years. So if you see, we have ourselves created one nation, Bangladesh. So there are alignments, there are non-alignments, whether we were technically non-aligned, but if you went to an American or the French ops room, you found us being shown as in the same color as Russia or Soviet Union was being shown. So anytime since we were buying most of the arms from them, people said, no, you are part of that lobby or that group. So actually speaking, there is at any given time, every country of the world is non-aligned to a point, and they are aligned to another point, and therefore I think I should leave it at that. There is no formal alignment, but there is no formal non-alignment. Okay, I'll put it that.
Okay, that's how the world has evolved. So next question is from Buddy. Why we are not good at fighting? Information warfare. Of course, I think that's a good question. Fourth gen warfare is interlinked with information warfare almost inextricably. Whole world media believes Pakistani version on 27 Feb post Balakot.
I agree with you. I recently finished a paper, 10,000 word paper on IWIO, information warfare and influence operations. Today, the last US elections, what happened in Ukraine, everything has been information warfare. The Russians. If one was to talk about the information warfare setup in China, it's huge. They are youngsters. They are guys who are very good at cyber. So information warfare is not standalone. Information warfare and influence operations are linked to the cyber activity that goes on. How to perpetuate the fake news, how to demoralize the other side, how to create proxies within the. Yes. Now, however, states which have got total control, like China, which is an authoritarian country, Pakistan, where the army literally rules the country and has got a ISI, powerful ISI. In India, we are a democratic country, and in democracy, there are always people asking, every day when you see on the news channel, the parties are pointing fingers at each other. You are close to China, you have been this, you have been that. So, my contention is for information warfare. Now, we have set up the Defense Cyber Agency. There are offensive actions, military to military action, but there has to be a large civil, component whose job is to spread so-called disinformation or spread, carry out this information warfare for diplomatic and other means. So the defense cyber will look after security of our cyber networks and to attack the cyber of their military. But the civil to civil action must take place, and the government has set up agencies. But I agree with the question that in information warfare, Pakistan has been doing a much better job. Yes.
Okay, next question. God forbid, but if country needs him again, is he ready to get into the cockpit? I mean, who are you asking? I think he's asking you.
Of course. I must tell you, an aviator is an aviator forever. There is a moment I see an aeroplane on the television or outside, I hear the airliner passing by, something moves in my system. And can you imagine at 59 years, 2 months age, as an air marshal, I ejected from fighter aircraft. That means I was flying. Look at the chief of air staff flying solo in an LCA, flying solo in a MiG-21. Look at Pakistani air chief flying in a two-seater to show to the world that, okay, I'm flying. This is, flying is a passion. Each one of us, not me alone, everybody, all aviators would want to get into the cockpit and, fly. Even when I fly in an airliner as a passenger, I'm looking out of the window, seeing how the plane is doing, how is the control surfaces moving. It's part of your aviation is part of it.
Great. The next question. So, which is your favorite fighter jet and why?
Of course, you always have loyalties to aeroplanes that you have flown, like Mirage 2000 I love that aeroplane. Now, as a test pilot, I must tell you, and this is for public knowledge, that when we became test pilots, the first thing which was taught to us is to know how this aircraft is, just do a walk around an aircraft. How pretty that aeroplane is to look at, that much good it will be and pleasurable to fly. When the other day Rafale was being inducted, I was on some TV channel. They asked me what is nostalgic feeling, because 25 years back I had brought the Mirage 2000 following the same route from France to air. I was a pioneer in the first group of pilots. So we had done the same route, except that we didn't have air-to-air refueling, and brought the aeroplane to India. So the aeroplanes, the Mirage 2000, of course, now the Rafale, it looks so beautiful. And test pilot has an eye for looking for beauty, which will give you an indication of how good or pleasurable it is to fly. If you look at J-20 or you look at Rafale, you take your own call. which is the one which has got area ruling, which has got the shapes that it slice beautifully into the air. You can make out from the looks of it. Just to get stealth, you have to ruin the basic cuteness of the aeroplane and the ability to fly beautifully in terms of turns, etc., and be able to maneuver. So my personal aeroplane continues to be the favorite aeroplane of Indian Air Force till recently, the Mirage 2000. That's the aeroplane which was used finally in Kargil in big way. That's the aircraft which was finally used to do the Balakot strike. That's the aircraft which is the weapon system of the choice of the country even today. So Mirage 2000 and of course Rafale, the new aircraft will do very quickly. Yeah.
Okay, we got last two questions coming up. So the second last question is Abhimanyu again. With no money in pocket and no diplomatic support in Kashmir issue, do you think out of frustration Pakistan will do mischief like 1965 and 1999?
Yeah, you see, Pakistan has, if you see all the four wars, it's been mischief by them. They want to wrest Kashmir at any cost. But that cost has been so heavy. Now you're reading today's news about the FATF. They had to send, even the Saudis are jettisoning them. They have no money to pay for the CPEC to China. Even China doesn't know how to take money from Pakistan. I mean, this is their financial condition. And they are literally with a begging bowl in their hand. They can do mischief, but right now they know it. I think their Prime Minister has repeatedly made such statements that we are, India is big, their armed forces are big, we have no money, they can do this, they can do that. So the point I'm making is that those mischief days, I think, for Pakistan are over. But yes, the day we had this Galwan incident, next day there was a meeting in ISI headquarters, a briefing given to the Chief of Defence Staff, who's a nominal head because main chap is the Pakistan Army Chief, all the three service chiefs and their Joint Chiefs of Staff chairmen, all were given a full briefing on what's going on. Their SCADU, etc., is being kept active. The Chinese are known to have flown to SCADU and transited some time earlier. So they will try to be, but moment a second front opens, then the world will open up. Then many more things will happen. But Pakistanis are stupid, but I don't think that stage will come. But if such a thing happens, then India has many other options which India will have to take its own call. Yeah.
Okay, next question. Next question is India clueless about how to fight China? I think you answered that.
I don't think that answer deserves a question deserves an answer. You are telling the fourth largest air force of the world. Do you know what to do, what not to do? The country which divided one country into two countries. Has China created a country? No, nobody has created a country. India has created a country. So my contention is to say that we have a clue of what we will do. Young man, I don't know which place you belong to, but I hope you know what you have to do in the job that you are doing. And if you know what to do in your own job, trust that the Air Force and Army, Navy also know what they are supposed to do. Yeah.
Okay, the short answer is that we have all the clues, don't worry. So, last question. What Mi-17 was doing there on 27th February when the air battle was going on between IF and PAF? I think he's talking about that.
Yeah, fratricide. There's a case of fratricide. There's surely been a mistake made. The Air Chief last year at the Air Force Day conference, after the whole court of inquiry details were open, some heads have rolled, somebody has been punished, some mistake has been made. These kind of mistakes are made in the fog of war. Everybody, the Americans, the Chinese, the Russians, everybody has made some mistakes sometime in the fog of war. We have known, we are airliners, and if I list out the number of aeroplanes shot unknowingly or by mistake or because of fog of war in the Middle East. Iranian airliner was shot by the Americans. You know that an airliner was shot by the Russians in the 60s and 70s. And so there are fog of war issues in every country, but we have to introspect. We need to correct for it, and which any responsible service must. I mean, we are first feels guilty for what happened, whosoever did it, and that guy is he will feel guilty all his life because lives have been lost. Our brethren have gone in that accident, and therefore I think we some mistake was made, and it's a fog of war mistake, and we have to learn from it. Yes.
Thank you very much, Air Marshal Chopra. I think you've been very patient and also very frank, and you've answered all the questions. And you must know that our Jaipur Dialogue viewers, they really feel very tough questions. So I'm thankful to them also, and I request them to like, share, and subscribe these videos. And wherever they can, they do keep contributing through super chats. But even otherwise, if somebody can make a little donation to our cause, we would be very grateful. And thank you once again, sir. Thank you for coming.
And thank you so very much, Mr. Dixit. You are doing a great job. Jaipur Dialogues is a great forum. I feel honored and privileged to have been invited by you all to have such a elaborate discussion. And I'm very impressed with the viewers. Some of the advice, most of the questions very genuine. And any Indian would be concerned and would be interested in knowing where are we and where are we heading? Are we to feel proud? Are we secure? I think we are secure, and don't worry, and we all do our best, whatever happens. Yes. Thank you.
So thank you once again, and thank you very much.